Hello, I'm Sophie Kamarudin. Welcome to Kuala Lumpur and Bloomberg TV Malaysia. I'm joined in the studio by Patrick Lamini, CEO of the Development Bank of Southern Africa, and Mr. Batulze, Deputy CEO at the Development Bank of Mongolia. If I could please start with you, Bat. Today we had the signing of a memorandum of understanding between your two organizations right here in Kuala Lumpur. Could you give us some of the key details of this MOU?
Well, thank you very much for having us here at the studio. And last year, during the visit of the Deputy President of Southern Africa to Mongolia, the two governments agreed to work on the different areas of cooperation. And in that sense, our bank's signing ceremony with the signing MOU with the Development Bank of South Africa is the first step of implementing the two governments' decision that has been taken last year.
Sure.
The main points of the MOU is actually varies, and it's cooperation between the two institutions, ranging from the capital markets to joint investment into infrastructures.
So this is quite an important milestone, and there is an investment opportunity between Mongolia and South Africa. So from your point of view, what are the types of investment opportunities for the Development Bank of Southern Africa?
As the Development Bank of Southern Africa, we are primarily focusing on the infrastructure funding. By infrastructure, I mean in four main specific sectors. One is the energy sector, two is a transport sector, three is a bulk water infrastructure sector, as well as the ICT sector. Those are the areas that we tend to focus on in terms of our funding. And with the subsequent to the visit of our Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe to Mongolia, it became important that we begin to look at the similarities and the areas of opportunities between our two countries and the possibilities of us cooperating on exploring some of the infrastructure possibilities between our countries.
Yeah, infrastructure is a very big theme in Asia, generally speaking. Now, on DBM's side, what investment opportunities are you seeing in South Africa?
Well, our bank has enough cash, and the asset is about 3.5 billion USD. And in that sense, if we find interesting projects in South Africa, then I think we can do a club deal between our banks, having a syndicate deal for certain projects related to infrastructure that would meet both countries' interests.
Okay, and earlier you mentioned capital markets as an area of interest. Yeah. Could you elaborate further on that?
Well, we did some research on capital funding raising activities in Africa, and in that sense, the cost of funding at some point we considered is a little bit cheaper than, for example, going or asking or tapping the international market. So in that sense, for example, the Development Bank of Southern Africa could be a good provider for us or helping in that sense.
Okay. And one element of this MOU is to increase and encourage private sector engagement. What do you see then as this MOU's ability to stimulate that kind of activity?
I think we all know that in Mongolia they have recently discovered quite a great deal of natural resources in their country. South Africa has a very matured industry in terms of commodities. If you look at their discovery they have a very high quality and big reserves of coal. They have just discovered also oil in Mongolia. They have discovered gold as well. They've discovered other minerals, and South Africa has been in that game for a very long time. So I'm very positive that the cooperation between our two countries will open doors for our respective companies in our country to explore these kinds of opportunities between ourselves.
So there'll be
and share experiences.
Transfer expertise, technology between the two, and of course, Mongolia is a resource-strong economy. But today we did have a little bit of, well, not a big piece of news regarding changes to Parliament. Will that perhaps have any indication on how this type of MOU will go forward?
Well, I need to highlight that over the last 20 years we had 12 prime ministers. And every time, if you see the history, then the continuity of the politics of the parties and the next prime ministers, they all kept So in that sense, I'm expecting that the next prime minister will be from the same party. So he will obviously more focus on attracting foreign direct investment and that sort of thing. So I'm not too much concerned about what prime minister has to step down, or the next prime minister will exactly do the same. Because Mongolia has no choice but to more focus on having more international cooperation with international banks and international investors.
Yeah, so these types of linkages that are being built between financial institutions, between the private sector of Mongolia and South Africa, will enable that kind of cooperation despite the type of transitions we are seeing.
Yeah.
So looking then at the infrastructure opportunities in both nations, are you seeing any particular projects of interest this year or in the years to come?
At this moment, we are still looking through it, but obviously there are some projects, for example, concerning the power plant, project could be interesting for us.
Yeah. And on the Development Bank of Southern Africa's point of view?
Absolutely. In the area of energy, I think we have a lot of possibilities, because these possibilities and cooperation look both in South Africa and beyond in terms of the rest of the continent. So if Mongolian firms or companies want to come in, it becomes easier for us to crowd them into projects, both in South Africa and in the rest of the continent. So that's the possibility that we see on the back of this MOU that actually we're signing here with the Development Bank of Mongolia.
Yeah, energy is a very current theme, seeing as how global oil prices are on the decline. Will this have any implication then on the types of projects you may be interested in?
Not necessarily from the perspective of infrastructure, because infrastructure serves as catalyst for future economic activities. The way I see that, whatever is happening on the price of oil currently, it is surely it will be painful for oil producing countries, but for the oil importing countries, it becomes a relief. It depends from each perspective you look at it. But it is something that I think is as a result of certain events in the global arena and the state of the economies of the world that actually we're seeing it. But as the global market begin to pull up in terms of economic activities, I think surely you will see the opposite trend taking place.
And Bart, if you could have the final comment on that point.
Well, I fully agree with Mr. CEO. So in that sense, I fully share his points, and because if the commodity price, I mean, when it comes to crude oil, obviously it's a benefit for importing countries. But for other commodities like copper and coal, it's going to be obviously tough for us. I mean, because coal and gold, obviously the main sources of export, even for South Africa, Southern Africa, and also for Mongolia.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time. And today we had around the table in Bloomberg TV Malaysia, Patrick Lamini, CEO of the Development Bank of Southern Africa, and Mr. Baltuze, Deputy CEO of the Development Bank of Mongolia.